Diary entry number 33, entering a domestic violence shelter. Hello, and welcome back to the Nervous System Diaries. After making my escape with Pup and my incredible neighbor, we finally arrived at the domestic violence shelter. I wish I could tell you that the moment I walked through those doors, everything felt better. It didn't. First came the paperwork, the safety plan, the rules, and all the questions. Then they handed me a key code and walked me to my room. For the first time in years, I had a room that belonged to me. It wasn't fancy. There was a twin bed, a dresser, a nightstand, a TV, and one window. But to me, it felt like something I'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Pup and I stayed in the room for the first couple of days. We barely left. I rearranged the furniture so he'd have more space. And I think we were both still trying to understand the same thing. We were finally safe. I didn't know how long we would be there. My first room was upstairs, and every bedroom had its own keypad. Only staff had access to the rooms for inspection, which honestly made me feel safer than I had in years. Every week I met with an advocate who helped me figure out my next steps, such as housing and doctor's appointments. They also told me I'd eventually move into the downstairs disability room, closer to the fenced-in pet area where Pup could stretch his legs. I was grateful, but shelter life wasn't what I imagined. I thought it would be quiet. It wasn't. Doors slammed, kids screamed, TVs blared. My nervous system stayed on high alert, even though I wasn't in danger anymore. The building got quiet after 10 p.m., and those late night hours became my favorite part of the day. At first, I kept completely to myself, but eventually the other women started talking to me. I assumed everyone there had escaped domestic violence, but I learned that that wasn't always true. One woman was there because the court told her completing the program could help her regain custody of her child. Another was waiting on housing while working towards citizenship. One mother had 6 kids and entered the shelter because their father was in prison and they had been living without electricity. They had struggles of their own, but many of them didn't understand what long-term abuse had done to my body and mind. And that's okay. Not everyone has lived this reality. One of the biggest things I noticed after escaping was something I never expected. The adrenaline stopped. For years, I had been pushing through pain, surviving one crisis after another. But once I finally felt safe, my body crashed. Not normal soreness. I'm talking about the kind of pain that makes you question whether you could even stand up. Every injury I had ignored since leaving number 1, every year of stress, every mile I had carried, it all caught up with me. That's when I made myself 3 promises. Promise number 1 was I was going to go see a doctor. Promise number 2, I was going to start therapy. Promise number 3, I was going to cook from scratch again, because nourishing myself meant something far more than anybody could ever imagine, and it was also something I had forgotten how to do. When I arrived at the shelter, they give you the basics: a toothbrush, a comb, deodorant, and a few travel-sized toiletries. If you need more, all you had to do was ask. I didn't know that before leaving. So one of the things I'm thankful for that I packed was my favorite shampoo and body wash. It sounds so small, but having something familiar helped me feel human again. If you're ever planning an escape, I'd also recommend bringing a few over-the-counter medications if you can. I live with chronic migraines from years of head trauma, and shelters usually can't provide even the basic pain medication because of medication policies. I learned that the hard way. Before leaving, I was told only to bring about a week's worth of clothing because shelters have limited storage. Thankfully, I had just enough money from my escape to rent a small storage unit nearby for the rest of my belongings. Friends, and even a few family members I never expected, would also occasionally send me a little money. It helped me pay my phone bill and buy groceries until my food assistance was approved. I tried getting into the doctors immediately. The hospital told me the wait was almost 2 years long unless I wanted to sit in the emergency room. I couldn't do that. My back hurt too much. 3 months later, another staff member told me about a small community clinic. That clinic became the beginnings of my medical journey. Healing doesn't always happen because the system works. Sometimes it happens because one kind person knows another resource. That shelter had a shared kitchen, and honestly, that was an adventure. Cooking around people wasn't easy for me because it was so loud, and I don't like people standing behind me because of my trauma issues. So I kept most of my meals simple unless I had used the crock pot. Every now and then I'd make soups or desserts for everyone because cooking has always been one of the ways I show love. We'd visit the food bank once a week and share whatever we received. It wasn't much, but somehow we made it enough. The best part of shelter life wasn't the room. It was the mornings. I'd wake up before everyone else, make my coffee, do my laundry while the building was still asleep, and sit in quiet with Pup. Those little moments reminded me that the peace doesn't always arrive in big ways. Sometimes it arrives in a warm cup of coffee at 4 a.m. I also learned something that still makes me emotional. When I started buying my own groceries again, I didn't know how to choose what I wanted. For so many years, someone else told me no. No, you don't need that. No, it's too expensive. No, put it back. I felt very overwhelmed, but that's what control does to you. It stills your own voice until even the simple choice feels unfamiliar. The shelter was never meant to be for forever. It meant to be a bridge between survival and starting over. One woman had been there nearly a year before finally getting housing, and I remember praying that someday I'd have my own place again too. I didn't know what my future would look like. I just knew I was finally standing still long enough to imagine one. Tomorrow I'll talk about going to therapy and my first doctor's appointment, and what happened when healing officially began. Until then, I'm a soft-spoken survivor, and this is the Nervous System Diaries.